Retired human meets three alien sisters. Their request changes everything. The Wyoming wind howled through the pine trees as Marcus Thorne chopped wood behind his cabin, each swing of the axe a meditation. 5 years since he'd left NASA, 5 years since the accident that had grounded him permanently. At 52, he'd made peace with his isolation, or so he told himself. The sky erupted in brilliant silver light. Marcus dropped the axe, shielding his face as something streaked overhead, trailing smoke and sparks. The impact shook the ground a quarter-mile away, sending birds scattering from the forest canopy. His military training kicked in before his common sense could object. He grabbed his rifle and flashlight, then headed toward the crash site. The clearing was scorched, small fires flickering in the underbrush. At the center sat a craft unlike anything he'd seen in his 20 years with the space program. Smooth, organic curves that seemed to shift in the firelight, more grown than built. A hatch hissed open. 3 figures emerged, moving with fluid grace despite obvious injuries. They were humanoid, unmistakably female in form, with skin that shimmered like moonlight on water. The tallest one, with long silver hair that seemed to move of its own accord, locked eyes with him. "Please," she said in perfect English, her voice melodic yet urgent. "We mean no harm. Our ship is damaged. We need help." Marcus kept the rifle raised, his heart pounding. "What are you?" "Travelers," the silver-haired woman answered. "My name is Lyra. These are my sisters, Vila and Nova. We're from Etheria, a planet in what you call the Andromeda Galaxy." The middle sister, Vila, with shorter copper-toned hair, clutched her side where a dark fluid seeped through her suit. The youngest, Nova, with hair like spun gold, supported her sister while studying Marcus with curious violet eyes. "You're asking me to believe you're aliens," Marcus said, though the evidence hovered before him, defying everything except the truth. "We're asking you to be human," Lyra replied softly. "To help strangers in need." Something in her eyes, ancient and kind, broke through his defenses. Marcus lowered his rifle. "Can you walk? My cabin has supplies." As they followed him through the forest, Marcus wondered if retirement had just ended in the most extraordinary way possible. The cabin's warm light spilled across the wooden floor as Marcus tended to Vila's wound. The injury sealed itself rapidly once he'd cleaned it. Their biology was remarkably resilient. Lyra stood at the window, watching the forest with a mixture of wonder and worry. "Your world is beautiful," she said quietly. "So much green. Etheria's forests died centuries ago." Marcus handed her a cup of coffee. Their fingers brushed, and he felt a strange warmth travel up his arm. "What brought you here?" "Desperation," Lyra admitted, accepting the cup and inhaling its aroma with delight. "We've been searching neighboring galaxies for years. Our planet is dying, Marcus. We need help." Over the following days, an unusual routine developed. Vila, despite her injury, was consumed by the ship's repairs, sketching diagrams that made Marcus's engineering degree seem like kindergarten arithmetic. Nova spent hours in his small greenhouse, marveling at tomatoes and herbs, explaining how Etherian plants communicated through bioluminescent signals. But it was Lyra who occupied Marcus's thoughts. She was the navigator, responsible for plotting courses through space-time folds he could barely comprehend. Yet she asked him endless questions about Earth, about seasons, about music, about why humans seemed so fascinated with coffee. On the 4th evening, they sat on his porch watching the sunset paint the mountains gold and crimson. "We don't have this on Etheria anymore," Lyra said, her shoulder almost touching his. "Our sun is dimming. In another generation, maybe 2, our world will freeze." "I'm sorry," Marcus said, and meant it. Lyra turned to him, her luminescent eyes searching his face. "You gave up the stars, didn't you? I can see it in the way you look at the sky. Longing and regret. Accident during a Mars mission simulation. Lost my clearance for space travel." He paused. "Now the stars come to me instead." She smiled, the first genuine smile he'd seen from her. "Perhaps that's fate." Their faces were close now, the space between them charged with something neither could name. Lyra's hand found his, her skin cool and electric. "Marcus, Ships ready for testing." Vila called from inside, shattering the moment. They pulled apart, but Lyra's hand lingered in his for one more heartbeat. As they walked inside, Marcus realized his carefully constructed solitude had been irrevocably broken. And he didn't want it back. The ship hummed to life, its systems glowing with soft bioluminescence. Vila pronounced it spaceworthy, but her expression remained grave. The three sisters exchanged glances, and Marcus knew the moment of truth had arrived. "There's something we haven't told you," Lyra began, her voice steady but her eyes uncertain. "Our mission isn't just exploration." They gathered in his living room, the fire crackling as Nova poured 4 glasses of the wine Marcus had opened. The youngest sister spoke first, her usual brightness dimmed. "Our people are dying out. The environmental collapse happened too quickly. We couldn't adapt. Our birth rates have plummeted. In 50 years, there might be no Etherians left." Vila continued, "We've been searching for genetic compatibility. Not to conquer or colonize, but to survive. To blend our peoples, share knowledge, create a future for both our species." Marcus felt the weight of their words settle over him. "You're asking for a willing partnership," Lyra said, meeting his eyes. "We've visited 7 worlds. Humans are the only species genetically compatible with us. We need volunteers, Marcus. People willing to help us create a hybrid generation that can survive on both worlds." The room fell silent except for the fire's whisper. "Why not just ask Earth's governments?" Marcus asked. "Because we've seen what happens when governments get involved," Vila said bitterly. "Quarantine. Dissection. War. We needed to meet humans first, to understand you. And you chose a retired astronaut in the middle of nowhere. We chose someone who understands what it means to reach for the stars," Lyra said softly. She stood, moving closer to him. "Someone who knows that the universe is vast and wonderful and terrifying. Someone who might understand that love isn't limited by planets or species." The word hung between them. Love. Marcus stood, his hands trembling slightly. "Lyra." She stepped into his space, her hand reaching up to touch his weathered face. "I know this is overwhelming. I know we're asking the impossible. But Marcus, these past days with you, I felt something I never expected to feel on an alien world." He covered her hand with his, leaning into her touch. "I haven't felt this alive in years." "Then help us," she whispered. "Not because we're desperate, but because maybe, just maybe, something beautiful could come from this." The night air was crisp as Marcus walked alone through the forest, his mind churning. Behind him, the cabin glowed warmly. Vila and Nova had retired early, giving him space to think. But Lyra followed, her footsteps silent on the pine needles. "You don't have to decide tonight," she said, catching up to him. "Black SUVs passed on the main road this afternoon," Marcus replied, stopping at the edge of his property where the stars blazed overhead. "Government's getting curious about the electromagnetic signatures. We don't have much time." Lyra stood beside him, tilting her head back to gaze at the cosmos. "That's Andromeda," she said, pointing to a faint smudge of light. "Home is in that direction. 3 million light-years away, and yet here I stand, wanting to stay." Marcus turned to her. "What?" "I've been thinking," Lyra continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "Vila and Nova can return with samples, with data, with hope. But I—" She faced him, vulnerability shining in her eyes. "I don't want to leave you." His breath caught. "Lyra, you can't just abandon your mission." "I'm not. I'm choosing a different path." She stepped closer, her hand finding his chest, feeling his heartbeat. "My sisters can establish first contact properly, diplomatically. But someone needs to stay, to be a bridge between our worlds. To show that this connection is real." Marcus pulled her close, his arms encircling her waist. "This is crazy. We've known each other less than a week." "Time moves differently when you're travelers," she smiled. "I've crossed galaxies, Marcus. I know when I've found something worth staying for." Their lips met under the starlight, tentative at first, then deepening with the passion of two lonely souls finding unexpected solace. Her skin was cool against his warmth, but where they touched, heat bloomed. Marcus ran his fingers through her silver hair, marveling at its silken texture. They sank to the soft grass, the universe wheeling above them as they explored this newfound intimacy. Lyra's touch was curious and tender, learning the landscape of his body as he discovered hers. The way she shivered when he kissed her neck, how she gasped softly when his hands traced the curve of her spine. "I never thought I'd feel this again," Marcus murmured against her skin. "Then we've both been given an unexpected gift," Lyra replied, her fingers threading through his hair. Later, wrapped in his jacket under the stars, they made their decision together. Dawn broke over the cabin as the three sisters prepared for departure. The ship gleamed in the early light, fully repaired and ready for its journey home. Marcus had spent the night helping Vila load genetic samples, his own included, given freely, along with cultural data and detailed coordinates for future contact. Nova emerged from the greenhouse, her arms full of seedlings carefully preserved in stasis pods. "These will give my people hope," she said, her violet eyes bright with tears. "Thank you, Marcus, for everything." He hugged her carefully, mindful of the precious cargo. "Take care of each other out there." Vila approached next, her copper hair catching the sunlight. "I've programmed communication protocols into your satellite network. In 6 months, we'll make formal contact through the United Nations. By then, we'll have convinced our council that humans are allies, not subjects for study." She gripped his shoulder firmly. "You're braver than most of your kind realize." "I'm just a retired astronaut who got lucky," Marcus said. "No," Vila smiled. "You're the first human to truly see us. That takes courage." Lyra stood at the ship's entrance, her silhouette framed by the morning light. Her sisters boarded, giving the couple privacy for their farewells. "You're certain?" Marcus asked, though he already knew her answer. "More certain than I've ever been about anything," Lyra replied, descending the ramp one final time. "Besides, someone needs to teach you Etherian. You're terrible at the pronunciation." He laughed, pulling her close. "And someone needs to teach you about proper coffee brewing. What you made yesterday was a crime." The ship's engines began their startup sequence, a harmonious hum that resonated through the clearing. Vila's voice crackled through an external speaker. "Lyra, we'll return in 6 months. Try not to let him corrupt you with too much Earth culture." "No promises," Lyra called back, waving as the ship lifted gracefully into the sky. They watched together as it climbed higher, faster, until it became a silver streak that punched through the atmosphere and vanished among the stars. The forest settled back into morning sounds, birdsong, wind through pines, the distant rush of the creek. Marcus felt Lyra's hand slip into his. "So, what do we do now?" She smiled up at him, her eyes reflecting both starlight and sunlight. "Now, we show two worlds that different doesn't mean distant. That the space between stars is nothing compared to the connection between hearts." She leaned against him. "And maybe you can finally teach me to chop wood properly. I've been watching you, your technique is fascinating." He laughed, the sound rich and genuine. "I think I can manage that." As they walked back toward the cabin, the sun rose fully over the mountains, illuminating a world that had just become infinitely larger and more wondrous. Above them, satellites began receiving the first fragments of Etherian language and star charts, the beginning of a dialogue between civilizations. But in the quiet Wyoming forest, a retired astronaut and an alien navigator were writing a different story entirely. One of love discovered in the most unlikely place, proving that sometimes the greatest journeys don't take us to the stars. They bring the stars to us. The end.